I'm going to call this meeting of the Milton Board of Appeals to order. This is a continued hearing relative to an application basically known as Milton Hospital 199 Reedsdale Road. My name is Frank O'Brien. I'll be chairing this hearing for the Board of Appeals. What I'm going to do tonight is similar to what I did at the first hearing. I'm going to read the notice into the record for the second time, just in case there are any members of the public who were meeting. Moving forward, I will dispense with the reading of the notice and the other preliminary matters. But just for the sake of those who may not have been here at the first meeting, this is a continuing hearing upon the application of Beth Israel Deaconess Milton Hospital by their attorney, Marion McKettrick. The hospital is located at 199 Reedsdale Road. Their application is dated May 8th, 2024, seeking a special permit to build a one-story, 8,119 square feet, more or less, addition to an existing emergency room structure facing Highland Street, replacing an existing parking area as well. Additionally, the plan proposes adding a ground level parking area next to the existing two-story parking structure and relocating the ambulance loading and unloading zone for an increase of 80 parking spaces. This requires a special permit per the Milton zoning bylaw, Article 3, Sections 275-3.1, Article Roman numeral 5, 275-5.3, and Article 275-11.2. The property is located in a Residence B zoning district. All is set therein in said application, and plans on file with the board and open to public inspection. As I mentioned at the start, my name is Frank O'Brien, and I will be again acting as chair for this hearing. Joining me are my fellow board members, Kathleen O'Donnell and Michael Brown. The agenda for tonight is, again, I will be making some brief remarks regarding the general conduct of this hearing. I will then ask the applicant's counsel to make some opening remarks and introduce members of her team. I will then ask if there are counsel present representing other interested parties and ask them to introduce themselves. I will also make note to see if there are any elected or appointed officials. And based upon my purview of the attendee list, there do not appear to be any. But if there are any town or state elected or appointed officials, please let us know. We will obviously give you an opportunity to speak. We will have a discussion concerning some of the items that were coming out of our initial hearing. We'll also have a conversation regarding scheduling of the next public hearing. On scheduling issues, I would remind people that there is a site visit scheduled for this location for Saturday, the 27th, at 9 a.m. And I will defer to Attorney McKettrick as to logistics in terms of where to meet, that sort of thing, so that we all know where to go and what to do. Relative to the conduct of the hearing, and I will repeat this for the last time. I'm fortunate to be joined by two experienced members of the board who are well-versed in zoning matters involving the town and who, like me, have participated in more than a few hearings. For those of you who may have observed prior hearings, it's my intention to run this hearing in a similar manner. We'll seek to be efficient, but not at the expense of affording all interested parties an opportunity to be heard in an appropriate amount of time. For the sake of efficiency and decorum, all questions will be funneled through the chair, me. At the appropriate time, you'll be asked to raise your hand via Zoom to indicate your desire to speak. I will recognize you before you speak, ask you to provide your name and address. Statements should be brief and to the point. If someone has made your point before, please agree or disagree with that point, but do not feel the need to reiterate or repeat. We do take it, we do listen, we do take all points of view into consideration. So statements, again, should be brief and to the point. If you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. If you do intend to speak, I'd request as a courtesy that you also activate your camera, but there is no requirement to do so. I would also note that prior to this hearing, we received some materials from members of the public. At least one appears to be a PowerPoint presentation. We were also provided with some photos. If you desire to be allowed to share your screen, if you're making a PowerPoint presentation or something like that, please let us know when you're getting ready to speak, and we'll afford you an opportunity to have your screen shared as well. Finally, I would ask that folks during the course of the hearing continue to remind themselves that this is a public meeting. And while it is completely acceptable to advocate your position and to advocate it passionately, I'd again ask that you be courteous in doing so. This is an exercise in democracy, and we'd like to keep it at a level where everyone's point of view is taken into consideration. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board members if they'd like to make any additional remarks. So seeing none, I'm going to ask, are there any or retained consultants present at the hearing who wish to be recognized so that we can make note of your appearance at the hearing? Bill, are there any who have so indicated?
I don't see any raised hand. Well, Rebecca
I see one
Brown.
raised hand.
Yeah, Rebecca Brown.
Okay.
If I could suggest Sean Manning as well.
Okay, I will promote both of them to panel.
Okay. All right. Ms. Brown, would you mind introducing yourself? You're on mute.
Sorry, hit the button and it muted me again. Yeah, so I am Rebecca Brown. I'm the town's peer review consultant, working on the traffic peer review, traffic and parking peer review. We're still wrapping up that review, so we haven't finalized our initial comments. So I'm here more tonight to listen in and hear from the public and from the applicant about the project before we finalize our letter.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Appreciate it. And Mrs. McKettrick, is Mr. Manning part of your team?
Yes.
Okay, so I will, Mr. Manning, welcome to the Board of Appeals. Ms. Brown, welcome to the Board of Appeals. I think that completes the introduction. So,
Mr. Chair,
Counselor, the floor is yours to start out with. So, where are we here?
I just want to complete introductions. We have Richard Fernandez, Executive Director of the hospital here tonight, Justin Mosca, who's our engineer, and Sean Green, I'm always mixing up the Seans, who is our architect. So pretty much the full leaders of the team are here. If we are called upon to ask, answer questions, will be available. And I'm Marian McKettrick. I represent the applicant. I did send a very brief memo to the board last week, simply reporting that despite what we had hoped in terms of scheduling, we did not yet have initial peer review reports from either these engineering and stormwater peer reviewer or the traffic peer reviewer. And from Rebecca Brown's introduction that she is working on that and probably is pretty close to providing initial comments. But we thought initially we might be able to devote this meeting to traffic if we had the traffic peer review process pretty much complete. And we're not going to be able to do that. So we do have a few other things, a little bit of additional information that we sent to you. I also want to mention just one thing because I've been going back and forth with the town on how the peer review reports are to be sent to the town. And the town planner said that they should be going to the clerk for the Board of Appeals. So Ms. Brown, when you do send your initial report, it should go to William Donnell, I'm sorry, Bill Donnell and Donnelly. And I believe I sent through Sean Manning. I think I sent did you get the email address for him? So,
Yes, I
if
did.
this were a planning board application, it would go to the town planner, and the town planner would then distribute it to the board and then to post it and give it to the applicant. So the clerk for the Board of Appeals will need to do that in this case, in order to try to remove that burden from the planning director. So I wasn't clear on what the procedure was, but that's how it's been explained to me, and that will work just fine for everybody, I think.
Yep.
The memo that I sent just explained that we don't have these studies yet. We did send one planting plan. We're calling it a draft plan. Neighbors on the Spafford Road side have asked for additional evergreen plantings on that side. And that draft has been presented, sent to the board, and it should have been posted. And I think it's also been sent to the neighbors. So we would welcome comments on that tonight. Since it's a draft, we need to get feedback, and it'll probably be a while before we're back here again to meet. So we want to get these plans as good as they can be. I attended the initial meeting with the town and the traffic peer reviewer. That's Rebecca Brown. And that was on June 25th. And at that meeting, the town planner asked why the hospital couldn't build a second deck over the existing parking. I think we briefly discussed that at the last hearing, but I just provided a brief answer, and then the director of the hospital may want to elaborate. But 2 decks were proposed and approved back in 2005, but the second one was never built. And the answer as to why is in the experience the hospital had with the first deck after it was constructed. There were quite a number of structural issues. There were extensive and expensive repairs required. And it's also been determined certainly that you could not build on top of the existing deck. And so that the hospital does not want to undertake another deck and have that risk. The other point I felt was important to make was that a deck would be higher up, the lighting would be higher up, it would be more visible from Canton Ave and that direction, and from the sides. So that's another reason why the ground level parking may actually be better for everybody. So anyway, if Richard Fernandez wants to add to that, please do. That's my quick report. Just to say finally that we're trying to move through this process efficiently, but get as much feedback as possible. We will have a pretty long gap between this and the next meeting, which I hope will be early September. The hospital is in a critical situation with its emergency room. It simply does not have enough space. There's not enough private treatment rooms at all. And it's experiencing an increase right now in emergency room admissions, possibly because of what's happening with local hospitals, such as the Carney, which, nobody's really quite sure what's going to happen there. So those are my quick remarks. What I hope, in addition to hearing testimony tonight from neighbors and answering questions, I would like to know what schedule the board would like to pursue for the next hearing. I guess you already mentioned the site walk, but yes, there is a site walk at 9 a.m. this Saturday. The plan is to meet at the Highland Street entrance to the hospital. So we'll meet under the canopy there. That's one of the entrances. And then I was going to ask the board tonight at some point if there is anything in particular that they want us to show. Otherwise, we'll talk about it, when we get there, and we'll just take a walk around, and whatever you'd like to see, we'll look at. So that concludes my quick remarks.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, do you?
Yeah,
wish to-
I can just all the things Marion said about the parking structure are correct. I know there was millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars put in to correct the original parking lot. The other real constraint about doing a deck over the existing parking is we would have to find spots for 80 to 100 employees during the construction, which would be a real hassle for our folks. So we've looked at it. I actually looked to put solar panels on the existing parking structure, and they were deemed not sufficient to put those structures up. So that's where we're at with the parking lot. The only thing I would just reemphasize with Marion, we want to be thorough. I know hopefully we'll get these peer review studies done fairly soon, but any accommodations to getting the next meeting as early as possible. I wish I had this ED 3 years ago, but the Stewart instability, I mean, we're seeing 10% increases from January right now. We need to move forward, I think, for our staff and our providers and our medical staff, knowing that this plan is approved and we're moving forward, at least gives them a ray of hope for 2 years from now. But obviously, as Marion said, we want to answer all the questions, and obviously the peer review is critical for stormwater and traffic. So anything we can do to accommodate a hearing in August, I know for me would be very much appreciated.
Thank you, appreciate that. Before we get into any other comments on the planting plan or anything else like that you may want to present, let me ask Kathleen or Michael if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make at this time.
I just wanted to thank the team for providing the answer to that question about why there's not a second story on the existing deck. It's very useful information.
Yes, likewise, I have no questions though.
Okay. So at this point, Mrs. McKettrick, maybe we can just briefly touch on that planting plan. And then after that, I think what we'd like to do is maybe open it up to members of the public. The board has been in receipt of some information regarding the traffic related issues from some of the butters. So I think we'll go in that direction. So just as a coming attractions, shout out to our attendees. So, do you need to share your, member of your team need to share the screen or what have you?
Is there somebody else besides me who would like to do
Say,
that?
Mary, if
And
you want,
Justin will.
I was gonna say I can share my screen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome. William, if you wouldn't mind allowing me to share screen.
Well, while Justin's bringing that up, just to provide context, this was from the original neighborhood meeting that we had prior to our first hearing. And although this screening is on the opposite side of the emergency department, I just want to, I mean, we want to be good neighbors and be responsive to people's requests. We thought this was a reasonable request and one that we could potentially come through with. But I just want to make sure, Justin, if you could orient people where this is.
Yeah.
This really is not around the ED or the parking lot or anything. It's more just making it a little bit more, a little bit bigger barrier from the hospital overall.
Yep, that's a good intro. Thank you. So, can people see my mouse as well if I move it around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So just, as I think you're aware, but just to orient as Rich mentioned, so our parking expansion will be back here just off the existing parking lot on the north side of the hospital. The plan that I'll bring up in a second is down the south side along the buffer to the residences on Spafford Road. So that's that separation that was mentioned. So we're probably, just approximating it off here. We're somewhere in the range of 600 feet away from the project improvements. Bringing it up, this is the plan that was put together. Essentially, if I don't want to confuse anybody, I just want to jump back and forth a little bit. But this is an extension of an existing hedgerow of what they call green giant arborvitaes. So I'm going to jump back to the plan just so you can see them, because I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And you can see on these residences, there's a row of arborvitae that go down along a lot of the Spafford Road houses. but they end right about at the maintenance shed in the back of that lot. So to help with some of the views back towards this parking lot, what we're proposing is extending that by 14 of these green giant arborvitaes spaced out. They are large, I mean, just as implied by the name, but their mature size is somewhere in between 40 and 60 feet. That's shown in the table. So they get installed small, but they grow quickly because they're arborvitaes, and they spread out. So this would essentially come to a point where we're past that maintenance garage and start, again, to help to block those views back towards the parking lot. And there's some understory vegetation that would have to be cleared to get those to thrive and grow as well. There's a lot of understory growth throughout that whole length. There's fences along most of those properties, if not all of them. I can't remember if it's all of them. But it's, you don't see that probably behind the fence because they're probably, I'm guessing, about 6 foot high fences. You don't see the understory. We're gonna have to clear a lot of that so that these plants have the space to grow, but then they will grow taller than the fences themselves.
Mhm.
All right. Is that it?
Rich, I don't know if there's anything you want to add. That's it from a landscape perspective.
Okay.
Nothing else.
All right. Board, any questions, comments on this? Okay.
Nope.
All right. So traffic. We have a traffic study. We're waiting for the traffic peer review study. Clearly, traffic issues are going to be a significant concern for the abutters. Mrs. McKettrick, from your client's point of view, what's your general overview of the traffic situation and how would you propose the board to begin to tackle this situation?
Well, I think it makes sense generally to have the traffic discussion after the peer reviewer has provided comments and we responded. That's only to make sure that the study that the hospital has presented to the board is technically correct and has an appropriate scope and whatever else the range of the peer review really is. So normally I would say, we could present the traffic report. We can talk about what it says. I think just very generally, I would summarize by saying, first of all, that this application, this proposal for an addition to the emergency room is not designed to generate additional traffic. There will, as time goes on, always be additional traffic, but it is designed to be used by current patients who are now being examined in hallways and other very inappropriate spaces like closets. So this is for the existing patient load in the emergency room. That's the addition. The reason to create the parking lot is that the hospital is currently doing remote parking for a substantial number for many of its employees. That was supposed to be temporary. That's a requirement of a prior Board of Appeals decision. The hospital was required to come up with additional parking on site. And in addition, there are a few spaces that will be removed because of the location of the emergency room addition. So the new parking area is really designed to accommodate on site all of the hospital's parking needs. And it is not designed because there's a great additional load of traffic expected as a result of this application. So that's one aspect of the traffic study that's really made in the initial paragraphs, and it's repeated throughout. The second really important part of the traffic study is that the hospital and the neighborhood, because of other applications that we've been going through, that the neighborhood has been experiencing, is very aware that there is considerable traffic going up and down Spafford Road and other ladder streets, that it's a torment in some cases to the residents. And so we wanted to study the degree to which the hospital contributes to that traffic flow. So that's why I don't know that, I think it should be discussed with the peer review results, but I did also send to the board a one-day traffic study that was completed looking at who's driving up and down Spafford Road and whether they are going to the hospital or whether they're going somewhere else. And that study gives you percentages that shows how much of the traffic load on that day was contributed by the hospital traffic. That's one part of the traffic on Spafford Road in particular. The other part is what component of that traffic is trucks and what component is ambulances. And for the truck traffic, what the traffic study presented to you has done is proposed a plan to really much more stringently control the way trucks access Milton Hospital and to impose penalties or stop using vendors who violate that system. So that's all explained in the traffic study in detail. I don't have it right in the top of my head, but it's repeated several times throughout that study. And it is an important component of this application just because we can't pretend that this problem doesn't exist, even though this application is not supposed to be contributing to an increase in that traffic. There is an existing problem particularly with trucks going up and down that street, which is a narrow street with no sidewalks. So the hospital has a plan that's been proposed, and we'll expect to have discussion of that plan when we do have a detailed meeting, excuse me, when we have our meeting to discuss the traffic plan in detail after the peer review has been completed. So, we don't really, I'd like to see the peer review questions first. I'd like to brush up, have our consultant address any questions that are raised by the peer reviewer. But any comments that we continue to get at the hearing tonight, it's wonderful that the peer reviewer for traffic is here because she'll be able to hear them and perhaps have even a better perspective on exactly what's going on here. The other issue that's, I think, talked about in that study is the fact that ambulances, we cannot tell an ambulance that it cannot use a street as long as it's a public access street, because they're emergency vehicles just like fire trucks. And so while we can, encourage other, basically access from Reedsdale Road, which is the most desirable way to get into the hospital, ambulances are going to go in from Highland Street. And when they have to, they are going to have to go up the ladder streets. And we can't control that. It's just one of the things that happens when you're running a hospital. So that's a very quick summary. I'm not sure whether somebody, Sean Manning or Justin or somebody may want to add to that, or whether it's better to just leave it for now, listen to comments tonight, and then have a more detailed discussion when we have the peer review available.
So I'm going to take issue with your last point. I would agree with you that as an emergency medical facility, ambulances must be allowed to have access when they are in emergency mode. However, if an ambulance is in a non-transporting mode, no lights or sirens, or does not have a person on board, then that's an entirely a different story. So I would urge the applicant to be aggressive and think outside the box a little bit relative to what mitigation measures the applicant can take in the areas that it controls to additional, particularly heavy truck traffic or truck traffic in generally from accessing the streets. Are there some physical modifications that could be made to the locus that could potentially be discussed? I'm not speaking for myself as a member of the board, and the other members of the board are free to. I'm not ready to throw my hands up here. I think, frankly, the applicant has done a very good job in garnering support from a wide range of members of the community relative to the need for improvements to the emergency room. I think a similar sort of effort could be utilized to improve some of the vehicular situations in the surrounding neighborhood. And I think that I, as a member of this board, would appreciate some effort in that regard.
Mr. Chairman, could I just give a couple words to that, to your point there?
Feel free. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things you'll see in our traffic mitigation plan is where we feel we have control is with vendors where we have contracts. Ambulances, we don't have a contract. Actually, the contract with a lot of the ambulance is with the town of Milton. So we could partner with them on that one, but we don't have a contract with an ambulance company. So when their lights are off, like we said, I can't necessarily control it. We can influence it, right? We can talk to them. The other thing I think, and maybe Justin can bring up the visual again. One of the major structural things we did was making that roadway a one-way where the ambulance bay will be. So they will have to exit Reedsdale once construction starts and when this project is done. So this, Justin, can you point to this road right now? The ambulances park right where the building is. Can you go? Nope, over to the right. Currently, they park where this new building will be.
Sorry, I was just pointing out the one-way arrow.
The new
So
building, the
yeah,
bottom.
the current parking is right in here, right?
And so they can leave here, they can take a left or a right and end up on Highland Street and potentially go down the ladder streets. In the new design, the minute we start construction, this whole thing gets closed off. And when we reopen it, the traffic can go this way to the left, but the ambulance bays now are going to be reoriented over here. They will not be able to take a left and go back to Highland Street. They will need to go out Reedsdale. And for vendors, if you could slide over a little bit, remember for vendors, our loading dock is on the Reedsdale side. I mean, we will work. I mean, we have a materials management person, and we'll work with the neighbors, but it would be hard pressed for me to believe that a lot of vendors come, up or down Spafford. Our loading dock is right here in the front, right there of Reedsdale. So the most direct route is Reedsdale for trucks. Have we had a truck or two use Reedsdale? Maybe when they leave, which is the hard part, right? I can't necessarily control that. We can try to monitor it better, but those were the two things. One is I think the physical design of this will push more traffic to Reedsdale is what we want. And the second is we're committed. We've done the inventory. We know when our delivery trucks, and we've started those conversations since early May and put it in contracts that they can't use side streets when they get here. Obviously, we need to enforce that, right?
Great.
And if I may just jump in with another comment, Mr. Chair and Rich, the other, without getting into, sort of a full presentation of the traffic study, the other point of having that access road be one way and having the ambulances oriented in that direction, it's really going to, as Rich said, it's going to orient them and kind of force them to go out Reedsdale and not use Highland anymore. But that goes for the entire north parking field and the decks as well. We've essentially cut them off from being able to exit towards Highland. So we believe that's going to significantly reduce action on Highland Street.
Great. Thank you for pointing that out, and think that it will bear us to look at this again when we go more in depth into the traffic areas. Kathleen or Michael, anything that you'd like to ask or add at this point?
Well, I just was wondering, in terms of enforcement of, where trucks go or whatever, I mean, do you have like private security cops that tell people that trucks and things like that where to go, or is it
No.
just sort of,
Our security people are in the emergency department protecting
Yeah.
our staff.
Yeah, that's what I
Unfortunately.
thought. I mean, I would be I'd be surprised if you did. I just kind of.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, I think I know the answer to, but I just want to make sure. So the entrance exit from Reedsdale, that's not a one-way, right? You're just talking
No.
about that, right? Okay.
That's
Second
both.
question is, the traffic issues on Spafford Road, that's not on the site, right? That's not on the applicant's property. And I know that it's related to the hospital. The traffic issues are related to the hospital in some way, and related to this application in some way, but it seems to be more of a neighborhood issue. And I wonder, and I'm just putting this out there to my other board members, would it make sense for when we do have a discussion about traffic after the peer review is complete, to include somebody from the Public Works Department or somebody from the town who can comment on the traffic issues on those latter streets? Because while they're related and they deserve to be part of this discussion, there's evidently a limit as to what the applicant can do to address those issues. And I don't know if we have the authority to require anybody to be here, but it seems to me that it would make sense to have somebody from the town who's familiar with those issues be here to comment and maybe help.
And that's a good idea.
I think that's a great idea. We've actually in different cases asked and invited, for example, Chase Berkeley, DPW director, mine, or Mr. Sawinski from the planning department, to comment on those sorts of issues. So I think that's an excellent suggestion. So
Would we be
Mr.
able to
Chair.
ask them if there's some sort of schedule for installation of sidewalks in that area?
we could certainly,
Whether it's on some list of, future improvements or something like that? Not that the hospital was be doing that, but is the town got some plan for all those ladder streets to
Right,
handle it?
or signage, or
Or
traffic,
sidewalks,
right.
yeah, that way we're not shooting in the dark, so to speak. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one point to Michael's note there?
Please.
Michael, I appreciate you bringing that up. Obviously, we're part of the neighborhood, right? We want to be good neighbors and do whatever we can do to mitigate traffic. The cut-through report that Sean Manning's team did when we filmed it for 8 hours during the day, north of 80 to 85% of the traffic does not go to the hospital in any way. So we are a piece. We're all part of the neighborhood, so we got to own that. But it's mostly cars. I think the day they did the study, I think there were 4 trucks there. I don't know that they were all ours, going to our place, but it's a significant problem. And believe me, I've talked to the Spafford Street neighbors. I've walked that street. It is not a good situation. As Kathleen noted, there are no sidewalks, right? It makes it even more. But we would any support we can give for the neighbors of the town. We're happy to share our data or our studies and all that. But we would welcome having someone at the next hearing.
Okay, well, I think that we've reached the point. Anyone else, Mrs. McKettrick, anyone else on your team have anything else that they want to add on this issue before I open it up to members of the public?
Is there anyone else who would like to add anything?
Okay.
Okay, no.
All right, so what I'd like to do here is I'd like to open it up to comments from members of the public. One caveat, I would characterize whatever comments you'd like to make, and feel free to make your comments. But also, I would characterize this as a preliminary discussion relative to traffic issues. We will have a more in-depth discussion of this with the peer review report, the traffic report, at probably the next hearing. once we're finished with public comment on the traffic issues, what we will do is we will return and we will make a decision as a group relative to when that particular hearing will take place in September. And then we'll move on from there. But Mrs. McKettrick, does that sound acceptable to the applicant?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. So, Bill, if we could open it up to members of the public. And again, I would remind folks that if you would like to be recognized to speak, please use the functionality on this platform. Raise your hand. I will recognize you hopefully in the order that you've raised your hand, and then we'll go from there. So I see that two folks, I believe, have raised their hands. Simply because you're at the top of the list. Manette? Manette,
Thank you.
welcome back to the Board of Appeals. And just simply for the record, could we have your name and your address, please?
Sure. My name is Manette Donovan, and I live at 16 Spafford Road in Milton.
Thank you.
And
Welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
thank you, and thank you for your time and all of your consideration of our concerns. It's quite clear from the discussion of both sides today that you are looking to work and make these problems that were pointed out something that hopefully can be addressed as part of this process to the extent that you're able to do that. And I just wanted to ask, is it possible to share my screen? I did make a submission today. If not, I would just ask that the folks be able to read that at some point.
It is possible. We anticipated, given your submission, that you would ask to share your screen.
Okay.
So Bill, if we could allow Manette to share her screen for the purpose of providing the presentation to the board.
Yep, I'm promoting her now.
Okay.
Accept the promotion, Minute, and you should be able to share.
Manette, you've also muted yourself. I don't know if you intended to do that.
Do we lose her?
Hello?
Manette,
Can you
you're
hear me?
back. You've unmuted yourself. You are
Great.
all right. Now we can
Okay.
see you.
All right. And here is my screen.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing our concerns relating to the traffic concerns at 16 Spafford Road. I've lived on Spafford Road since about 2008, and I've seen traffic increase, but particular concern is the large amount of children in the neighborhood now and the type of traffic that the hospital generates. As we all know, Milton's master plan is to make walking and biking safer in the town, and we need to take this into consideration. Spafford Road is the oldest of these ladder streets here. It's not designed to handle the volume of traffic that we have. You can see how Spafford Road started out from this photo here, and it really isn't much larger today. It's less than 20 feet wide. So the type of and level of traffic using Spafford for hospital business is making it particularly unsafe. We've got a narrow road. We have no sidewalks. The rest of the ladder streets are wider and do have sidewalks. So Spafford is particularly dangerous. It's also highly populated with young families. The residents are overwhelmed with the current traffic, and we can't withstand additional burdens. And frankly, Adding capability to the emergency room is obviously not what I'm opposed to. It's just that there needs to be a plan to address this traffic. Because ultimately, if you build it, they will come. So in addition to the matter before you, I just want to remind folks that there is a very large facility proposed for construction at the very top of Spafford Road off of Highland. That will bring an additional 228 88 trips per day. That's about 2,000 per week. This is what the corner of Spafford and Highland looks like. You can see quite clearly there, it's very tight. There is one sidewalk on the side there, but all of Highland is not on sidewalks. So GPS takes folks up Spafford. Folks want to cut down the street because of stop signs to avoid lights. And we've been working with the hospital from some time, and I'm pleased that they're wanting and putting together plans to work with us. But we still see ambulances and delivery trucks daily. It's not a problem we've been able to resolve, and we're at a peak time for enforcement. So I'm so pleased to hear that if possible, the town might be involved to assist with this effort. This is an actual picture of an air gas truck, which provides services to medical facilities coming up Spafford Road. And again, you see there are no sidewalks, and that's quite narrow. Supply Solutions going down Spafford. They come both ways, up and down. Here we have the Ride, which we see frequently. I've seen them pulled over having lunch in front of my neighbor's yard. And you can see the inadequacy for width of two cars. If there's a child, baby carriage, someone walking a dog, there is no space. There's no sidewalk there. And here you have a truck coming up Spafford and another one leaving. We have over 20 minors on the street. We have 2 newborns. We have a number of toddlers. Kids in the middle school walk up this street, or from down below, they cut up Spafford to get over to the high school. And you can see here, we've got an ambulance passing down the street, and at the bottom, it's just something that is a regular occurrence. Here we have Crown Linen Service going down the street. This past March, children were trapped on a school bus because a truck was using Spafford Road. And as someone pointed out, you know, part of the issue is Spafford Road itself. It's very narrow with no sidewalks and being largely used. So to the extent that the town becomes involved, we would greatly appreciate that. Here's another example of what we see on a quite frequent basis on this busy street. Despite consistent complaints, this problem remains. The following 2 slides are from just the past few days this week. Here we have across from my house, Coastal Medical Transport is parked there, and someone's getting out talking on the telephone. It's like a shady little spot. And then later in the day, we have someone pulling over in front of a house on Spafford, getting out of the ambulance. So these aren't all like ambulances speeding up the street with their lights on. They're just kind of people that choose to use this road and actually stop on the road quite commonly. Here's another one. This is again this week, and I brought this picture in there just to show you how wide an ambulance is on Spafford Road. And by no means would we want someone unsafe and not able to get to the hospital. But I just think Spafford Road particularly is not designed for this type of traffic, whereas Reedsdale Road obviously is, with its multiple shoulders and wide width and sidewalks on both sides. And then even Highland isn't, you know, very well designed for it. Here you can see the small scenic road that Highland is, with the sidewalk only on one side. So I would ask, despite the fact that it sounds like we are looking to move this, fast track this along a bit, I would ask that any traffic account take into account, we have multiple large-scale construction projects on Highland Street by Northbridge Development. We also have them coming up on Kent Ave, Randolph Avenue, completion of a project in Milton, at Milton High School. So these are substantial projects. Just at the top of Spafford Road, the facility that's going in there, they're planning to take down 300 trees as part of this. So you can imagine the upset to the neighborhood and the trucks. So thank you for our listening to our concerns. It sounds like all involved parties are taking them seriously, and we greatly appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Manette, and thank you for taking the time to provide us with the presentation and for your interest in this. Let me turn it over to my fellow board members, Mr. Brown, Ms. O'Donnell, if you have any questions or comments, questions for the presenter or comments in general.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for presenting that information. That's very helpful.
Yes,
pleasure,
same.
thank
No questions, but thank you very much for that presentation. It was helpful.
Thank you.
Attorney McKettrick, anything that you'd like to comment on at this point, or would you prefer to wait?
I don't have anything to say in particular. We will have more comments and discussion, you know, when we do a full discussion of the traffic plan. But I do appreciate the presentation and the visuals. Makes a big
Thank
difference.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Minette. Appreciate it. And
Thank you.
if you are finished, if you could put yourself on, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for the great Zoom etiquette. The next person that has raised their hand is Bard H. Hello?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And would you mind stating your name and address, please?
Of
for the
course.
record?
I'm Bard Hairizai. I live at 11 Spafford Road, and I apologize if there's any background noise. I'm just driving home from soccer practice with my daughter. But no, I very much appreciate the chance to speak. And you know, I like Minette. You know, I think most of us, you know, myself included, you know, we're supportive of what the hospital is trying to do. We totally understand the need. We're not trying to delay or you know, cause any roadblocks here. We're just hoping that as part of, you know, making some of these, you know, non-trivial changes, that there's an opportunity to kind of improve things. And, you know, as Minette said, there are a lot of other projects in and around this area. So, you know, to the extent that we can help improve things, it would go a long way. And I do have a few comments on the planting plan. I know Attorney McKettrick had asked at the beginning, I believe, for feedback. If that's something you'd like to hear, I'm happy to provide
absolutely.
some feedback.
Go ahead.
No, very much appreciated the suggestion in the plan. I had not actually seen the email, or I may have missed it, but I will definitely look at the materials. I think I know where to look on the website, but I think there is actually a few pictures in the photo album I submitted apart from the traffic that kind of highlight, particularly the 6 months of you know, when the deciduous trees have no leaves, that for you know, 3 or 4 of us on Spafford, you know, you have kind of this glaring view of bright lights, and it includes kind of the main drive from Reedsdale up the hill, and you know, which would then presumably connect with the new parking lot, would kind of spill over. So you know, all those lights shine, you know, into our yards. And whereas you have these other properties further up the hill where that you know, have that really nice green giant screen of 40-50 feet, as was mentioned, you know, it kind of stops as apologies, I forget the gentleman's name who presented it, but he was exactly right. You know, that area is pretty much bare for 6 months of the year. So, you know, with you know, employees now probably driving to the site as opposed to, you know, getting shuttled regularly, you know, there will be more traffic using that main drive. And so, you know, a lot of those lights, you know, that we can see now, you know, it would go, you know, would be a huge benefit to us. And you know, so we appreciate the suggestion of what was shown in the plan. I'll have to take a closer look, but initial feedback is positive for me. You know, we live right there, so that would really help screen, you know, even though it's several hundred feet away, we do see it. And I think, as I said, in the pictures that I shared in that photo album, when you have a minute, you'll see a few that show kind of that wintertime view. So that's very, very much appreciated. On traffic, you know, I would like to say, you know, I very much appreciate Mr. Chairman, the others, the comments. You know, it sounds like you understand, you know, you're well aware of the concern, you understand the problem, the current existing problem. I would add, I do think the suggestion, you know, for what it's worth, that Rich Fernandez highlighted, and we had talked about before about reorienting the ambulance bays and making that side on Highland a one-way and kind of forcing traffic to go back down Reedsdale. I think that is a real, it's a good idea, and that has potential to be a real improvement. As you'll see in the photo album, you know, and again, we're not talking about, you know, emergency time. You know, we totally respect and understand the need for, you know, full access during emergencies, but you know, there's many times, you know, almost daily, sometimes multiple times a day, where, you know, you have ambulances off duty, just kind of cruising up and down the street, which, as I think, as Rich noted, you know, the majority of the traffic that cuts through Spafford is not hospital related. It doesn't surprise me to hear, you know, a figure like 80% or 85% is not turning into the hospital entrance, because we get all kinds of other traffic, whether it's high school, whether it's people going to the ball fields, or just trying to get from one side of town to another. There's quite a bit of other traffic. However, you know, it's you know, everything is incremental, and to the extent that, you know, those ambulances really don't, the reason they're using Spafford is because it's faster for them to kind of access 28 than to navigate the parking lot the way it's currently set up. And I think similarly for the delivery trucks, you know, when you have those large vehicles on this narrow street, as Minette mentioned, in addition to passenger vehicles and then the pedestrians, you know, there's a few photos I think I just added where, you know, you see what the pedestrians have to do. They have to jump off road to you know, yield basically to the vehicles. You know, having other physical means like that, reorienting the ambulance bays, you know, similarly for the trucks would be a huge, you know, improvement, where, you know, a 70-foot tanker truck or a 40-foot box truck, WB Mason or Mansfield Paper or what have you, you know, is coming in the main entrance and then going back out the main entrance. You know, that is, you know, would be huge for us, you know, because, you know, besides the safety issue, the noise is just so significant. And you know, 11 o'clock at night, when an air gas truck comes up and it wakes up our 3-year-old, or at the time 2-year-old, you know, these are real kind of disruptions that, you know, again, don't want to sound like we're overly complaining, but, you know, it's happened, as Minette mentioned, where these trucks get stuck, where a school bus cannot pass because there's a large truck on the road and there's no room. So the police have to be called, so that one of these large vehicles actually has to be backed up onto Reedsdale. It is not really a sustainable situation. And so for that reason, I think we're, you know, I will take a look. I'm definitely take a look at the truck plan that they've mentioned, which I, you know, very much appreciate. You know, hopefully there's some other good suggestions in there, like they have with the ambulance bays, that will help and make a difference. And yeah, so, and then I think Ms. Kathleen, apologies, I don't have your last name in front of me, but you'd asked a question about sidewalks, and I think there had been some discussion. My understanding, we had talked, and I don't want to speak for him, but we had talked with Chase Berkeley a couple of years back about why Spafford doesn't have sidewalks. And on the one hand, I think he said, you know, there is technically enough room with the town owning, I believe 35 feet width, and the roadway is only just under 20 feet. But I think there was some complication around when the road was repaved in 2015, it was kind of done more or less straight, whereas the property lines don't go straight. And so on the bottom, you know, on the lower, down the hill near Reedsdale, the town owns more of the land on one side of the street. But then as you move up the hill, if I'm explaining it correctly, that starts to shift. And then, you know, by the time you pass the halfway point or you reach the top, the town owns most of the town-owned land is all on the other side of the street. So you kind of, there wasn't this ability to do a continuous sidewalk on either side without taking land. In that process, as I understand it, is a little bit complicated and maybe costly. And then just in general, you know, I think he had a comment that, you know, if it were easy, we would have done it. The town, you know, his guess was the town would have done it by now, like the other ladder street. So I don't know if that's helpful. And like I said, he may have more insight, but that's the conversation I recall when we had asked about, you know, sidewalks a couple years back, if it's helpful. And then just
Thank
one
you.
final point. Sure. And just one final point, you know, is I think Minette had mentioned, you know, we're having the memory care facility, you know, likely going at the top of the street, 2,000 vehicles a week. In their traffic study, their engineer had given examples about how you know, speed humps, particularly around schools and hospitals, were a good way to kind of calm traffic, and presented some data on, you know, percent reduction in volumes and speeds. And you know, if it's not the fastest way to go for some of these trucks, then they'll use the proper channels as opposed to, you know, cutting through. And so they presented some good data on that. So I think that's one of the things we as a neighborhood are, you know, it's lost momentum this past 2 months given the summer and people are away, but we're trying to re-engage with the town on exploring the speed humps option, given it seems like it's happened elsewhere in town. And it's relatively lower cost, as I understand it, than sidewalks would be. You know, so if there's an opinion on your, you know, your traffic, either the peer reviewer or the, you know, the traffic experts that you know, Milton Hospital has enlisted, if there are any, you know, if you, maybe that's already in there and you've already thought about that as a suggestion for the town, but you know, if it's not too much trouble to, you know, give an opinion on that, I think these are the types of kind of, we're trying to be practical. We know there's only so much you know, and we appreciate the time and your thoughtfulness already, that, you know, all of you on this call can do, but you know, those kinds of things I think would really go a long way, and not just for the residents, but I think for many of the people who use, you know, need to get from one side of the town to the other, use Spafford Road, particularly to get to the schools and to the ball fields, to the hockey rink, you know, to make it easier for everyone and safe for everyone. I think that's ultimately the goal. And obviously, like I said, you know, we totally respect the hospital's desire and need to move forward with their expansion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bart. Appreciate those comments. Thank you for bringing up the point about the sidewalk issue. I know that you're on the phone to Ms. O'Donnell, is a very well-versed land use lawyer, and you set the word takings and her up. So we'll it will be an interesting thing to take a look at.
As I always recall, somebody complaining in another town that I represented about the sidewalks, and they were surprised to find out that when we were putting the sidewalks in, they were losing 10 feet of their front yard. There was some excitement about that, as you can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, and appreciate your comments. And if you've completed your comments, appreciate it if you could mute yourself. And thank you again for joining us this evening. The next person who has raised their hand is Nadine Hannah. Nadine, do you still wish to speak?
Hi, good evening. Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for calling on me, and to everyone for your
Nadine, may I just ask you just
yes.
for the record again, just to state your full name and your address so that we have a record.
Nadine Hannah, 11 Spafford Road. And once again, thank you, everyone. It's always wonderful to see democracy at work, and I appreciate all of the effort that you've put into tonight's meeting and everything else that you do for the town. So just thank you again for allowing us the time to speak on this important issue in our neighborhood. As I am in a abutter on the Spafford side of the hospital, I do appreciate seeing that addition to the landscape via the arborvitae along what would equate to be my neighbors, the O'Neills, myself, I believe the Medeiros family just down the hill from me. That really would be a great upgrade. I do remember Concom being particularly impressed with the existing planting on the Spafford abutters up the hill, in that they were double stacked or even triple stacked in some instances, and that created an even greater noise and light barrier. So I just wonder if there might be a note in there to perhaps consider that revision and addition of plantings. And as good neighbors, sometimes we're not afraid to ask for a bit more when we have the attention. In regards to some of the comments again on the traffic, I mean, I just want to say that it's contradictory to say that we're going to increase parking spots and ER usage, but somehow not traffic, not, you know, regular vehicular traffic nor ambulance traffic. I think that we have to say that's inherent, that there will, of course, be an increase in ambulance usage of the ER and most likely of Spafford Road up the hill. I do appreciate that there is some mitigation to try to redirect them from not coming back down the hill. That being said, tonight, as Bard was speaking at about 7:52 p.m., you know, we received more than one picture of the Brewster ambulance that was passing by my house on its return trip down to Highland. And many neighbors made note of that on the chat because, of course, the timing is perfect for this conversation. As far as the traffic study that was done in, you know, just one day or one brief set of hours on one day, not, you know, one day in time is one day in time. It's not going to give you a full outlook on the type of traffic that we see here every day. I know Bard did share that an edited version of our traffic album. I am frequently the one out on a walk with my phone in my back pocket, snapping a quick pic of the ambulances up or down. The air gas picture was my, you know, handiwork as well. That air gas tanker was also photographed in the parking lot of the hospital moments later by someone who happened to be passing by and said, "Let me just take a quick peek." So that is confirmed that not only was it a, you know, heavy duty traffic vehicle using Spafford, but they were using Spafford with the intention of entering the hospital premises. We're at the point now where we know that I think it's Crown Linen Services complete their deliveries by about 1:30 p.m. every Thursday, because that's when they use Spafford to exit the hospital and to get down to Reedsdale as well. That's very reliable timing. And I know that the hospital was commenting on perhaps having a limited ability to influence how ambulances access their property. I appreciate your comment, Mr. Chair, that probably should be addressed more firmly. And also in just to make a note that they're stating that they have more influence over their vendors. Well, the linen service is certainly one of their vendors. And as I stated, they use our streets so regularly and at such a time that we know exactly when, you know, we're going to see them pass down the street. So I will make note that during and I know it's a separate project, but during the Highland Ave proceedings that we all attended for the planning board, there was a lot of talk from that applicant that the hospital had pledged to help the neighbors of Spafford Road with our traffic issues. And now that the hospital is attempting their own project and sees the neighbors of Spafford asking that in conjunction with their project that we actually see some real life changes, we're now being told that they really can't do much to help us out. And I believe it was mentioned during the neighbors meeting that frankly, they hadn't tried yet at that point, which was a bit disappointing because there, you know, the only hope we had, if we can't reach the town on our own as residents, was that, you know, someone with a little more power or influence would perhaps come in here and back us up. So as much as I do appreciate the additional plantings, I'd also like to see fewer trucks and ambulances on our road. All that being said, again, to Minette's point, we have a lot of kids on the street. We have a lot of children. We don't have sidewalks. Like Bard mentioned, sidewalks don't seem to be a realistic addition to our road feature. And, you know, we have great neighbors who probably don't want to be fighting with each other over who lost 10 feet on this side and who lost 10 feet on that side. And we like to keep it positive here, and we also like to keep it safe. So the answer for me is a reduction of hospital and future, you know, memory care commercial vehicle usage of Spafford Road. I'm in food production and sales as my trade and my profession. I'm very, very used to how large these vehicles are and the dangers that are associated with them. So I'm particularly sensitive to it, especially with my 3 children who are within the next few weeks turning 9, 7, and 3. Very active, great kids. They want to be able to play with their neighborhood friends, and I'd like to see them do that with fewer hospital and other medical facility traffic, vehicle usage on the street being an impact on the way that we, roam up and down to see our buddies. So those are all my thoughts. And once again, I do appreciate all of you and thank you for giving me the time tonight and every other a meeting that we've attended so far. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So just a bit of Zoom etiquette, housekeeping. Just double check your cameras. Those of you who may want, who wish to be on camera, that's fine. There may be some folks who don't necessarily realize that they are on camera at the moment. So that completes the list of folks who have raised their hand who wish to speak. Does anyone else care to make a comment at this particular point in time from members of the public? All right, then, hearing and seeing no additional persons who wish to make a comment, I think at this point in time, I think the applicant has received some feedback in general. I think some new interesting information that was provided, which I know that the applicant will take into consideration as the board will over the course of this hearing. Let's talk scheduling. So, Attorney McKettrick, is there anything you'd like to add or make a comment on before we look at our proverbial calendars here?
No, but thank you for asking. For all of the comments on traffic, I think we need to take those back and review our study and the peer review comments and put it all together for you the next time we meet. Thank you.
Thank you. So, let's look at September. So, Labor Day is September 2nd. I, for one, as I said earlier, the two busiest days of the year are the Tuesday after Labor Day and the day after New Year's, because that's when America goes back to work. So I'm back to work the week of September 2nd, so you all should be as well. I personally am pretty open our month of September, so I have great availability. So if I was the problem in August, I apologize. Sorry, not sorry. But I won't be the problem. I won't be the problem in September. So I'm pretty open in September. I'd like to have a meeting or two, if possible, in September. I don't want to make this hearing a lifetime commitment for all of us, but it's important that we take the time that it needs. So let me just throw out the possibility of a hearing of the board on Thursday, September 5th at 7 a.m.
7
7
p.m.
p.m.
I'm sorry. Did I say 7 a.m.?
Yeah, you
I'm
did.
sorry, 7 p.m.
I've already got a meeting at 7 a.m., Frank, so we're going to have to do 7 p.m. So yes, so Thursday, September 5 at 7 p.m.
That's fine.
Yep.
Wow. That was easy. Now, Bill, are we able to utilize whatever we need to utilize from the town point of view in terms of scheduling this and having a Zoom and doing all that wonderful stuff?
I don't see any conflicts.
Wow, that just seemed way too easy. Okay, but let's not look a gift hearing in the mouth. So mark your calendars, boys and girls, September 5th at 7 p.m. for a continuation of this hearing. By that time, I expect that the board will have the traffic peer review as well as other items as well. So over the course of the next week or two, we will touch bases with Mr. Sawinski, other folks within the town, and Attorney McKettrick, I expect you will as well, so that we can make the 5th as useful and as efficient as possible. What I am hearing tonight is, generally speaking, that there isn't a lot of opposition, if any opposition, to the concept of expanding the ER itself. What I am hearing is essentially there are ancillary issues associated with traffic, parking, and, if you will, the issues that are always associated with lighting, planting, things like that. So again, if anyone wants to correct me, I'm not hearing tremendous opposition to the concept that the ER itself needs to be expanded. Now, that's not to say that we're anywhere near the board making a decision on this. I'm just pointing out what my impression is based upon 2 hearings so far and the public comments made by several participants in the hearing so far. So no one should take that to the bank that the board is moving in a particular direction. We still have plenty of other issues left to do, including stormwater and associated stuff. So, all right. Now, the next thing in terms of is Saturday at 9 a.m. And we will meet at the Highland Ave entrance.
Right.
Mr. Fernandez, I assume you will be there. Mrs. McKettrick, I assume you will be there.
Mhm.
So my hope, I will be there at 9 a.m. My hope is to start as close to 9 a.m. As possible. So remember the old adage, early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. So
Good Lord.
we will start as close to 9 as possible, because I know that there are other folks who have better things to do on their Saturday. We will take as much time as we need in order to do this. So my hope is to walk the site. What I would ask the applicant and what not to do is just kind of, if you will, put a face on the plans. This is going there. This is going here. This is the parking deck. These are the trees behind the parking deck. This is the road that the ambulances are going to go one way and not the other way. So just, we will have an opportunity for the applicant to walk us through the project so that we get a on the ground visual of it. Members of the public are invited. Members of the public, who, particularly the neighbors, are welcome to attend. There will be questions asked. There may be some questions answered, but other questions may have to wait a hearing. I want to note for folks that this is not a public hearing. This is a site visit. There will not be a record kept of the answers, the questions and answers. If there are issues that need to be addressed following that, we will do so in the context of the next hearing, so that we are on the record, so that there will be a public record of whatever issues are raised. So I just want people to be mindful of that. It will be a walk of the hospital grounds. The board itself and the consultants were well aware of the conditions on Spafford Street and whatnot. I can assure you that many of us have unfortunately added to your traffic burdens last weeks in terms of perusing your neighborhood. So we're well aware of the conditions on that. But you know, an individual board member or two may very well take a walk over as well in that area. But again, we're well aware of that. So is everybody straight, up to speed? Any questions relative to what we're doing on Saturday morning at 9 a.m.?
Nope.
Okay.
Mr.
So,
Chairman, we'll have both Justin and Sean will be there too, our architect and engineer. So
Great.
right,
we'll be ready to
I'd
answer
love to see
questions.
engineers and architects in the field. They're different people. So, okay.
Did we establish a meeting location? Or we
Yeah,
Yeah,
Highland Street.
Highland Street,
Highland
Yeah.
Street? Okay.
the main entrance, Highland Street. There should be plenty of parking. You can just park right up next to the entrance.
My apologies if I missed that.
So, given that little speech and given the amount of information, I'm just going to ask if there are any questions from members of the public regarding what we plan to do on Saturday. In particular, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. We'll address your question. I do not see any hands raised, so we'll go with that. Okay, I think that unless there are any other questions or comments from members of the board or from the applicant, I think that we have reached the point where we can close this hearing. So again, we will meet Saturday at the Highland Street entrance for purposes of walking the site. The next formal meeting of the Board of Appeals on this particular issue will be noticed for Thursday, September 5th at 7 p.m. All right.
Right, so
Thanks,
wouldn't
everyone,
that,
for your-
so
I'm
shouldn't I
sorry,
be
go ahead,
moving,
Kathleen.
shouldn't I be moving to continue this hearing until September 5th at 7 p.m.?
Thank you. Feel free.
I just moved that. I moved that we continue the hearing on the hospital application until September 5th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Is there a second? I hear a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This hearing is so continued. Thank you for keeping me honest, Kathleen. With that, thanks everyone for your time and attention this evening. Hope to see folks on Saturday and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Have a good August, everybody.